The stars looked peaceful from Earth. For thousands of years, humans had gazed at them, wondering if they were alone. On a quiet Tuesday morning, they got their answer. Captain James Reed sat in the control room of the Global Space Defense Center, sipping his coffee. At 42, he had spent most of his life preparing for a moment he never truly believed would come. His gray eyes focused on the screen as the strange signal appeared again. "What do you think it is?" asked Mike, the communications officer. Reed shook his head. "Not sure. But it's not one of ours. The signal had first appeared 3 days ago, a pattern too regular to be natural, too complex to be simple interference. It came from somewhere beyond Jupiter's orbit and repeated exactly every 4 hours. "Sir," called out technician Anna Wilson from her station, "the signal has changed." Reed walked to her screen. The pattern now pulsed differently, almost like it was responding to their attempts to decode it. "It knows we're listening," Reed said quietly. Within hours, the world's leaders had been informed. Within days, Reed found himself commanding the Thunder, Earth's most advanced military spacecraft, heading toward Jupiter to investigate. The Thunder wasn't built for first contact. It was a warship designed to protect Earth's growing colonies on the Moon and Mars. But it was the best they had. A sleek, nuclear-powered vessel with basic weapons systems and a crew of 30 specialists. "Captain, we're picking up something massive ahead," reported Jack, the sensor operator. It's huge." Reed looked at the main screen. At first he saw nothing but the blackness of space and Jupiter's massive form in the distance. Then he saw it, a dark shape blocking the stars, moving slowly toward them. "Full stop," ordered Reed. "All systems on standby. Let's not appear threatening." The alien ship became clearer as it approached. It was at least 10 times larger than the Thunder, shaped like a massive arrowhead with glowing lines running along its dark hull. It moved with impossible grace for something so large. "Are they responding to our signals?" Reed asked. "Nothing, sir," Mike replied. "Wait, we're being scanned. Some kind of energy beam is passing through the ship." Before Reed could respond, every screen on the Thunder went dark. The engines shut down. Only life support and minimal lighting remained functional. "Status report," Reed demanded. "Sir, all systems are down," Anna said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "They've somehow disabled everything without firing a shot." Reed felt a cold weight in his stomach. In seconds, this alien vessel had neutralized Earth's most advanced warship like it was shutting off a light switch. "Captain," Mike called out, his voice strange. "You need to see this." A new image appeared on the main screen, not from their systems, but projected somehow. A being stood looking at them. It appeared almost human, but with gray-blue skin, large eyes, and no visible hair. It wore what looked like armor made of flowing metal. "I am Krell, commander of the Vex expansion fleet," the being said in perfect English. "Your vessel has been secured. You will be brought aboard for assessment." A bright light filled the Thunder, and Reed felt a strange pulling sensation. When he could see again, he stood in a large, circular room with walls that seemed to shift colors. His entire bridge crew stood with him, looking confused and frightened. Krull entered, flanked by 2 taller beings carrying what could only be weapons. "Captain James Reed," Krull said. "Your identification was easy to extract from your primitive systems. Why have you come to our system?" Reed asked, stepping forward. He noticed the other Vex tensed, but Krell seemed unconcerned. "Expansion is necessary," Krall replied simply. "Your solar system has resources we require. Your species will be cataloged and assigned appropriate status within our hierarchy. We won't surrender our home without a fight," Reed said. Krall made a gesture that might have been amusement. 17 systems before yours said the same. All now serve the Vex. Your resistance would be brief. The casual confidence chilled Reed more than any threat. "Come," Krall said. "I will show you why resistance would be unwise." Reed and his officers were led through corridors that seemed to shift and change as they walked. The ship was eerily quiet despite its size. "Where is everyone?" asked Anna. "A ship this size should have thousands of crew members. The Dominion requires minimal organic oversight," Krull explained. "Most functions are automated or controlled by our integrated systems." They entered what appeared to be a command center, though nothing like the bridge of human ships. It was a vast space with few physical controls. Vex operators stood in circles of light, moving their hands through holographic displays. A massive window showed the Thunder, now dwarfed by the alien flagship. "This is the Dominion," Krull said with obvious pride. "The most advanced vessel in the Vex fleet. It can destroy a planet's military installations without damaging valuable resources." Reed studied everything he could see, memorizing details. If they survived this, Earth would need every bit of intelligence he could gather. "You said we're being assessed," Reed said carefully. "What does that mean?" "Your species will be evaluated for usefulness," Krull replied. "Some species serve as laborers. Others have valuable genetic traits. Some prove too primitive or aggressive to be worth preserving." "And who decides that?" Reed asked. "I do," Krull said simply. "I have overseen the integration of 17 systems. Yours will be the 18th. Reed looked back at the Thunder, floating helplessly in space. Earth's best technology looked like a child's toy next to the Dominion. "Your vessel has been thoroughly scanned," Krull continued. "Your weapons would not penetrate our outer shields. Your engines cannot outrun us. Your communications cannot hide from us." Reed stood straighter. "There's more to humans than our technology." Krull studied Reed with those large alien eyes. "Yes, that is why you are here instead of simply eliminated. You show unusual patterns. Your species deserves proper study before classification." As Reed and his crew were led to what would be their quarters, or cells, he caught a glimpse through another window. More Vex ships were emerging from what looked like a tear in space itself. A fleet was gathering. The invasion of Earth had begun, and humanity had no idea what they were facing. Their only advantage was that the Vex didn't seem to consider them a serious threat, just another species to be cataloged and conquered. Reed made a silent promise. The Vex would learn that humans were unlike any species they had encountered before. Somehow, some way, he would make sure of it. Thomas Wells was not a soldier. With his thin frame and thick glasses, he looked more like a professor than an engineer for Earth's military. But his mind made him valuable, perhaps the most valuable human aboard the Dominion. 3 weeks had passed since the Thunder's crew had been captured. Unlike what Reed had expected, they weren't treated as prisoners but as curiosities. The Vex provided comfortable quarters and allowed them to move within certain areas of the massive ship. Wells spent every moment he could studying Vex technology. At first, the aliens were cautious, but when they saw his genuine fascination, they allowed him greater access. They seemed to enjoy his amazement, like adults showing toys to a child. "The power systems are incredible," Wells told Reed during their daily meeting in Reed's quarters. They spoke quietly, though both suspected the Vex monitored everything. "They use some kind of controlled reaction that's far beyond our fusion technology." Reed nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. Through the small window of his room, he could see Jupiter growing smaller. The Vex fleet was moving inward, toward Earth. "They're letting you see too much," Reed said. "Why would they show an enemy their technology?" Wells adjusted his glasses. "Because they don't see us as a threat. To them, it's like showing a car engine to a caveman." This stung Reed's pride, but he knew it was true. The gap between human and Vex technology was enormous. "Have you noticed something strange about the crew?" Wells asked suddenly. Reed looked up. "What do you mean?" "There are so few of them," Wells explained, lowering his voice further. "For a ship this size, I've counted maybe 200 Vex, and they don't make decisions." Reed leaned forward. "Explain." "They follow procedures. Everything is by the book. When something unexpected happens, They freeze until their systems tell them what to do. Wells tapped his head. They rely completely on their AI. It's why they're letting us walk around. Their systems calculated we can't possibly threaten them. This was the first potentially useful information Reed had heard. Can we use that somehow? Wells shrugged. Maybe. Their technology is superior, but their thinking is predictable. Their conversation was interrupted by the door sliding open. Krell stood there, flanked by guards. Captain Reed, Krell said, your planet's governments are responding to our arrival. You will assist in communications. Reed was led to the command center, where a massive screen showed the panicked faces of Earth's leaders. The Vex fleet had positioned itself near Mars, a show of force that couldn't be ignored. Tell them resistance is impractical, Krell instructed Reed. Explain what you had seen. Reed stepped forward, seeing the fear in the eyes of people he had sworn to protect. This is Captain James Reed of the Thunder. The alien force calls themselves the Vex. Their technology is, he hesitated, advanced beyond our current capabilities. The president of the United Earth Alliance spoke up. Captain, are you under duress? Reed chose his words carefully. I am being treated well. The Vex wish for peaceful integration of Earth into their system. Integration. Another leader asked. Surrender, Reed clarified, earning a sharp look from Krell. But they promise minimal disruption to civilian life. The conversation continued, with Earth's leaders trying to negotiate while the Vex simply stated their terms. Resource extraction would begin immediately. Human military forces would stand down. Resistance would result in focused removal of opposition. After the communication ended, Reed was returned to his quarters. He paced the small room, feeling the weight of what was happening. Earth was about to be conquered, and he had just advised surrender. Hours later, Wells burst into his room, eyes wide with excitement. I found something, he whispered urgently. A way out. Reed gestured for him to continue. The Vex use automated systems for everything, even security, Wells explained. And those systems are designed to detect logical patterns of escape. But if we do something completely illogical, they might not notice. Reed finished the thought. Wells nodded enthusiastically. Plus, I've been mapping the ship. There's a hangar of smaller vessels not far from our quarters. If we could reach it. Reed felt hope for the first time in weeks. We'd need a distraction. Already working on it, Wells said with a smile. I've been asking questions about their power systems. I think I can trigger a diagnostic reset in this section. It would only give us minutes, but maybe enough. Reed considered their odds. Even if they escaped the Dominion, they'd be in a stolen alien craft they barely knew how to fly, pursued by the most advanced fleet in the known galaxy. We need more than escape, Reed said finally. We need information. Something Earth can use. Wells pulled a small device from his pocket. It looked like a Vex data tablet, but with obvious modification. I've been recording everything, he said. Power systems, propulsion, weapons. I don't understand most of it, but our scientists back home might. Reed stared at the engineer with new respect. You planned this from the beginning. Wells shrugged. I'm not a soldier, but I'm still fighting for Earth, just in my own way. 2 days later, as the Vex fleet began positioning for the final approach to Earth, their plan went into action. Wells triggered a power fluctuation that sent Vex crews running to check systems. In the confusion, Reed led a small group including Wells and Anna to the secondary hangar. The smaller Vex craft were still intimidatingly alien, but Wells had studied enough to get one activated. As alarms began to sound, they launched from the Dominion, speeding away from the massive flagship. They're not pursuing, Anna called out, watching the sensors Wells had shown her how to monitor. They don't think we're worth the effort, Reed said grimly. Or they know we can't escape. Wells worked frantically at the controls. I'm trying to figure out how to use their version of faster-than-light travel. If I can just. The ship shuddered as a beam of energy passed nearby. A warning shot. They won't let us reach Earth, Reed realized. They can't risk us bringing information. Wells looked up, his face pale but determined. Then we don't go to Earth. Not directly. We go somewhere they won't expect. Using the ship's incredible speed, they shot towards Saturn, hiding in its massive rings. The pursuing Vex vessels, clearly not expecting such an irrational course, lost track of them temporarily. This won't fool them for long, Reed warned. Long enough, Wells replied, transferring data to a small emergency beacon they had brought from the Thunder. Long enough to send what we know to Earth. As the beacon launched, speeding toward Earth with its precious cargo of Vex secrets, Reed watched the Vex ships beginning to close in again. What now? Anna asked quietly. Reed looked at his small crew, these brave humans who had just changed the course of history. Now, he said with grim determination, we make sure that beacon reaches Earth, no matter what it costs us. Admiral Lisa Grant had never seen the leaders of Earth agree on anything so quickly. The data from Reed's beacon had changed everything. Time is critical, she told the assembled group of scientists, engineers, and military officials gathered in the underground facility in Antarctica. The Vex believe Captain Reed and his team died in Saturn's rings. They don't know what we have. What they had was a miracle. Engineer Wells had managed to capture the fundamental principles behind Vex technology. Not everything, but enough to give humanity a fighting chance. Project Horizon begins today, Grant announced. One ship, the most advanced vessel humans have ever built. In the months that followed, as the Vex established mining operations on Mars and began stripping the asteroid belt of resources, Earth worked in secret. The best minds from every nation came together in the hidden facility carved deep into the Antarctic ice. Thomas Wells had survived. The beacon had been a trick. The Vex destroyed a decoy while Wells, Reed, and their small team used the confusion to slip past the alien fleet and return to Earth. Now Wells led the engineering team, working 18-hour days to translate Vex technology into something humans could build and operate. The key is the power source, Wells explained to Reed during a rare break. They stood in front of a massive window overlooking the construction bay where Horizon was taking shape. We can't replicate it exactly, but we can create a hybrid system. Reed nodded, watching workers swarm over the half-built ship. It was smaller than the Vex vessels, about twice the size of the Thunder, with a sleek design that reminded him of ancient sea predators. Will it be enough? Reed asked. Wells pushed his glasses up. The Vex rely completely on their AI and automated systems. That's their weakness. Horizon will have Vex-based technology, but human control. Unpredictability is our advantage. Reed studied his friend. Wells had changed in the months since their escape. He was thinner, more focused, driven by purpose. The crew? Reed asked. Being selected now, Wells replied. People who think differently. Artists, gamblers, people who make intuitive leaps. The kind of thinking the Vex can't predict. 6 months after the project began, Horizon was ready for its first test. The ship gleamed under the lights of the launch bay, its dark hull absorbing rather than reflecting light, making it look like a ship-shaped hole in reality. Reed stood on the bridge, now officially the captain of humanity's last hope. His crew of 20 had been chosen from thousands of candidates, not just for their skills, but for their creativity and adaptability. Power systems online, reported Anna, who had survived with them, and now served as Horizon's operations officer. Hybrid core stable. Reed took a deep breath. Engage stealth systems and prepare for launch. Unlike the Thunder's rumbling engines, Horizon lifted with barely a whisper. The Vex-inspired propulsion system worked perfectly, accelerating the ship out of Earth's atmosphere with a smoothness that felt impossible. We're clear of Earth orbit, Anna announced. No sign of Vex detection. Reed nodded. Take us to the test coordinates near Jupiter's moon Europa. Wells stood beside Reed, monitoring the hybrid systems he had designed. Power efficiency is better than expected. The Vex-inspired hull is absorbing all scans that hit us. Reed allowed himself a small smile. For the first time since the Vex arrived, he felt hope. They reached the test area in hours rather than days, thanks to the modified Vex drive. Reed ordered a full systems check before they began testing the weapons systems that Wells had designed, a combination of Vex energy weapons and human tactical innovations. "Captain," called out Jack from the sensor station, his voice tense. 3 Vex ships approaching from the asteroid belt. Reed immediately ordered battle stations. They weren't supposed to be in this sector. "They must have detected our power signature," Wells said, working frantically at his console. "The drive gives off a unique energy pattern." Reed had to make a decision. They could flee back to Earth, but that would lead the Vex straight to their secret base. They could try to hide, but the alien ships were already tracking them. "Prepare for engagement," Reed ordered. "Power to weapons and shields." His crew looked at him with wide eyes. Horizon was untested in battle. They were about to face 3 Vex cruisers with a ship that had never fired its weapons. The Vex ships approached in perfect formation, their massive forms dwarfing Horizon. A communication came through. "Unidentified vessel," the Vex voice said. "Your configuration is not recognized. Power down and prepare for boarding." Reed ignored the command. "Tactical, target the lead ship's propulsion system. Let's see what our weapons can do." The weapons officer, a former game designer named Paul, locked onto the target. "Ready, sir." "Fire." A beam of concentrated energy, based on Vex designs but modified by human engineers, shot from Horizon and struck the lead Vex cruiser. To everyone's surprise, the alien ship's shields flickered and failed where the beam hit, and the engine section took damage. "It worked," Wells exclaimed. "Their shields weren't calibrated for our modified weapons signature." The Vex ships immediately changed formation, spreading out to surround Horizon. "They're using standard Vex tactical pattern Delta," Anna reported, referring to the battle formations they had learned from studying Vex data. "Exactly as expected." Reed smiled. "But we don't need to be predictable. Helm, full power to starboard thrusters, then cut all power for 3 seconds before re-engaging." The helmsman, a woman named Linda who had been a stunt pilot before the invasion, grinned. "Yes, sir." Horizon lurched to the right, then went dark, drifting in space. The Vex ships adjusted to intercept but were caught off guard when Horizon powered back up directly between 2 of their vessels. "Fire port and starboard weapons simultaneously," Reed ordered. Both Vex ships took hits to their vulnerable areas. One began to spin, its propulsion damage. The other managed to return fire, but Horizon's shields, designed with knowledge of Vex weapons, held. The 3rd Vex ship attempted to retreat, clearly intending to report this new threat. "Can't let them warn the fleet," Reed said. "Maximum speed, intercept course." Horizon shot forward, overtaking the fleeing Vex vessel with surprising speed. A final volley from their main weapon disabled the alien ship's engines. In less than 10 minutes, Horizon had defeated 3 Vex cruisers without taking significant damage. The bridge crew sat in stunned silence before breaking into cheers. Wells clapped Reed on the shoulder, his eyes shining. "It worked," he said simply. "It actually worked." Reed nodded, but kept his expression serious. This was just the beginning. They were scout ships, not their main fleet, and now they know we have new technology. "But they don't know what we know about them," Wells replied. "Their predictability, their reliance on AI, their standard responses. We can use that." Reed looked at the disabled Vex ships on the view screen. "Send a message to Admiral Grant. Tell her Project Horizon is a success, and tell her," he paused, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction. "Tell her the counterattack has begun." News of Horizon's victory spread across Earth like wildfire. 1 ship had defeated 3 Vex cruisers. 1 ship had proven humanity could fight back. Reed stood in Admiral Grant's office, giving his report on the battle. The Admiral listened carefully, her weathered face showing little emotion until Reed finished. "So the Vex don't know how we did it?" she asked. "No, ma'am," Reed replied. "We disabled all 3 ships before they could send detailed information. Their main fleet knows something happened, but not what." Grant nodded slowly. "Good. We need to keep it that way." She walked to a large map of the solar system showing Vex positions. "We can't match them ship for ship. Horizon is our only advanced vessel. We need to use it wisely." "Hit and run," Reed suggested. "Strike where they don't expect, then disappear before they can respond." "Exactly," Grant agreed. Guerrilla warfare in space. Over the next month, Horizon became Earth's secret weapon. Reed and his crew struck Vex mining operations in the asteroid belt, disabled communication relays near Mars, and even raided a small Vex base on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Each victory was small, but together they began to disrupt the Vex operation in the solar system. More importantly, they created confusion. The Vex, used to easy conquests and predictable enemies, couldn't understand how a single ship could cause so much damage. After each mission, Horizon would return to the hidden Antarctic base for repairs and improvements. Wells and his team constantly upgraded the ship, learning more from each encounter with Vex technology. "They're adapting," Wells told Reed after a particularly close battle near Venus. They sat in the ship's small mess hall, drinking coffee while the crew rested. "Their shields are being modified to counter our weapons." Reed nodded. He had noticed the Vex defenses improving. "Can we stay ahead of them?" "For now," Wells said, though he looked worried. "But there's something else. The Vex ships we've encountered recently have had more crew, fewer automated systems." This was concerning news. If the Vex were reducing their reliance on predictable AI, Horizon's main advantage would diminish. Before Reed could respond, Anna rushed into the mess hall. "Captain, Admiral Grant is on the emergency channel. The Vex flagship is on the move." Reed and Wells hurried to the bridge, where Grant's grim face filled the main screen. "The Dominion has left Mars orbit," she said without preamble. "It's heading for the outer system with a fleet of 20 ships. Intelligence suggests they're hunting for Horizon." Reed felt a chill. The Dominion was the massive ship that had captured the Thunder. It was at least 50 times larger than Horizon, and carried weapons they had never seen used. "Who's commanding it?" Reed asked, already suspecting the answer. "Krell," Grant confirmed. "Apparently your escapes and raids have made him look bad. He's taken personal command of the hunt." Wells stepped forward. "Admiral, if the Dominion finds this base—" "I know," Grant interrupted. "That's why Horizon needs to draw them away from Earth. Keep them chasing shadows while we prepare our defenses." Reed understood the order beneath her words. Horizon was to be bait, keeping the Vex fleet occupied and away from Earth for as long as possible. "We'll leave immediately," Reed said. Once Horizon was safely in space, Reed gathered his crew on the bridge. "This mission is different," he explained. "We're not attacking. We're distracting the most powerful Vex ship in the system." "Playing cat and mouse, asked Linda, the helm officer. "Yes," Reed nodded. "But we're the mouse." They traveled to Neptune's orbit, where the vast blue planet and its many moons would provide places to hide. Reed ordered the ship into a low-power mode that Wells had developed, making them nearly invisible to Vex scanners. 2 days later, the Vex fleet arrived. The massive form of the Dominion led the way, its dark hull blotting out the stars. Smaller cruisers spread out, beginning a systematic search pattern. "They're being thorough," Anna observed from her station. "Standard Vex search pattern, but with modifications." Reed watched the scanner. "They're learning." For 3 days, Horizon played a dangerous game of hide and seek around Neptune and its moons. The ship would power up just enough to be detected, draw several Vex vessels away from the main fleet, then disappear again before they could be caught. "We can't keep this up forever," Wells warned after a particularly close call. "Our power reserves are dropping, and they're getting better at tracking us. Reed knew he was right. It was time for a more direct approach. Set course for Triton, he ordered, referring to Neptune's largest moon. Full power once we're behind it. The plan was risky. When Horizon emerged from behind Triton at full power, several Vex ships immediately locked onto them. But instead of running, Reed ordered an attack on the nearest cruiser. The battle was fierce but brief. Horizon disabled 2 Vex ships before retreating, but took damage to its port engine section. Engineering reports the hybrid drive is unstable, Anna called out as the ship shuddered around them. We can't maintain this speed for long. Reed studied the tactical display. The remaining Vex ships were pursuing, with the Dominion following behind. Plot a course through the Kuiper Belt, he ordered. We need more places to hide. For the next week, Horizon led the Vex fleet on a chase through the outer solar system. The ship's condition worsened with each skirmish, but they managed to disable 5 more Vex vessels. Then came the message from Earth. Admiral Grant's face appeared on the screen, looking both proud and sad. Captain Reed, you've given us the time we needed, she said. Earth defenses are as ready as they'll ever be. It's time to implement the final phase. Reed understood. Operation Sunward. Grant nodded. The Vex fleet is scattered thanks to your efforts. Most of their ships are chasing you in the outer system. If we're going to strike at their command structure, it has to be now. Reed looked around at his tired crew. They had been fighting for weeks, pushing Horizon to its limits. Now they were being asked for one more sacrifice. We'll bring the Dominion to Saturn, Reed promised. Just be ready when we arrive. After ending the transmission, Reed addressed his crew. This is it. One final mission. We're going to lead the Dominion into a trap at Saturn. The rings? Wells asked, understanding immediately. Reed nodded. The perfect place for an ambush. As Horizon set course for Saturn, Reed couldn't help but remember his first encounter with the Vex, hiding in those same rings after their escape. Now they were returning, not as fugitives, but as warriors, leading humanity's greatest enemy into what would be the decisive battle of the war. The Dominion followed, just as Reed had planned. Krall's obsession with capturing Horizon had blinded him to the larger strategy. As they approached Saturn's majestic rings, Reed prepared his crew for what would either be their finest moment or their last. All stations, prepare for battle, he ordered. Let's show them what a human warship can really do. Saturn's rings spread out like a vast battlefield, billions of ice particles and rocks reflecting the distant sun. Perfect for hiding. Perfect for an ambush. Horizon drifted among the debris, running on minimal power. The damage from their long campaign showed on the ship's hull, burn marks from Vex weapons, patched sections where emergency repairs had been made, systems running at reduced capacity. The Dominion has entered Saturn's orbit, Anna reported, her voice low as if the enemy might hear them through the vacuum of space. 5 support cruisers with it. Reed nodded, studying the tactical display. His plan was simple but dangerous. Lure the Dominion into the densest part of the rings, where the massive flagship would have limited maneuverability, then strike with everything they had left. What about Earth's forces? Reed asked. In position but hidden, Wells answered from his station. Admiral Grant has 3 modified ships waiting behind Titan. Not as advanced as Horizon, but they've incorporated some of our technology. It wasn't much, just 3 ships against the most powerful vessel in the Vex fleet. But it was everything Earth could muster. Reed took a deep breath. Begin Phase 1. Power up just enough to be detected, then lead them into the Cassini Division. The Cassini Division was a 4,800-kilometer wide gap in Saturn's rings, large enough for ships to maneuver, but surrounded by dense ring material that would confuse sensors. Horizon powered up its engines, sending a brief energy signature into space, a beacon for the hunting Vex ships. Then it slipped deeper into the rings, following a course Wells had plotted through the debris. They've detected us, Anna confirmed. Dominion is changing course to pursue. Reed watched as the massive Vex flagship turned toward their position, its support ships spreading out to block escape routes. Krell was being cautious this time, not underestimating his human prey. "They're deploying smaller craft," Jack reported from the sensor station. "Dozens of them." This was new. The Vex hadn't used fighter-sized vessels before. Reed adjusted his plan. "Tactical, prepare the modified mines," he ordered. One of Wells' innovations had been to convert spare parts into small, simple explosive devices that could be scattered in the rings, indistinguishable from the natural debris until they detonated. As Horizon pushed deeper into the Cassini division, it left behind a trail of these disguised weapons. When the first wave of small Vex craft followed, several mines exploded, destroying 3 ships and damaging others. "They're pulling back," Anna said. "Regrouping." Reed nodded. "Now for Phase 2. Full power to engines. Make for the Ankh Gap." Horizon burst from its hiding place, engines flaring brightly as it raced along Saturn's rings. The sudden movement caught the Vex by surprise, but they quickly adjusted, the Dominion turning to pursue while its escort ships tried to cut off Horizon's route. "2 cruisers approaching from port," Jack called out. "They're trying to box us in." Reed smiled grimly. "Just as expected. Execute Maneuver Delta." Linda, at the helm, grinned as she cut all main power, letting Horizon's momentum carry it forward while firing lateral thrusters in a seemingly random pattern. The ship tumbled, appearing to be damaged and out of control. The Vex cruisers closed in for the kill. "Now," Reed ordered. Horizon's systems came back online instantly. The ship stabilized and fired its main weapons directly at the nearest cruiser's propulsion section, its most vulnerable point. The Vex ship's engines exploded, sending it spinning into the second cruiser. Both ships, damaged and unable to maneuver properly, drifted into Saturn's rings where the debris battered them. But there was no time to celebrate. The Dominion was gaining, its massive weapons charging. "They're locking weapons," Anna shouted. "Execute emergency dive," Reed ordered calmly. Horizon plunged downward relative to the plane of Saturn's rings, passing through the thin band of ice and rock at tremendous speed. Particles pinged off the hull as the ship accelerated. The Dominion fired, its energy weapon cutting through the rings where Horizon had been moments before, vaporizing millions of ice particles and creating a spectacular-like show. "They missed," Jack confirmed, "but they're adjusting aim." Reed leaned forward in his chair. "Send the signal." Wells pressed a sequence on his console, sending a coded message to the Earth ships hiding behind Titan. It was time for the trap to close. "Bring us around," Reed ordered. "Back toward the Dominion. Maximum speed." His crew looked at him in shock. "Sir," Linda questioned, "we're heading straight for them." "Sometimes the last thing they expect is a direct approach," Reed said. "Full power to forward shields. Prepare all remaining weapons." Horizon turned and accelerated directly toward the massive Vex flagship. The Dominion, not expecting such a suicidal attack, hesitated for crucial seconds. In that moment, Earth's 3 ships emerged from behind Titan, racing toward the Dominion from the opposite direction. Caught between approaching enemies, the Vex ship began to turn, bringing its weapons to bear on multiple targets. "Now comes the tricky part," Reed said. "All hands, prepare for extreme maneuvers." As they closed with the Dominion, Reed gave a series of orders that made no logical sense. Random power fluctuations, course changes that seemed to have no purpose, weapon targeting that ignored obvious weak points. The Vex ship's defensive systems, programmed to counter logical attacks, struggled to predict Horizon's movements. "They can't track us properly," Wells said, watching the enemy's targeting systems try and fail to lock onto Horizon. "Their AI can't understand what we're doing because there's no pattern to understand." Reed nodded. "Because we're not following any pattern. We're being human." In contrast, the Dominion's responses were becoming increasingly predictable as its systems fell back on programmed defensive routines. Each time it fired, Horizon was already moving in an unexpected direction. "Get me a communication channel to the Dominion," Reed ordered. Anna looked surprised but opened the channel. "You're connected, sir." "Commander Krell," Reed said calmly, "your ship is surrounded. Your escort vessels disabled. Surrender now." There was a pause before Krell's voice came through, sounding genuinely confused. "You cannot win, human. Our analysis shows your ship is damaged. Your weapons cannot penetrate our main shields." "Analysis," Reed repeated. "That's your problem, Krell. You rely too much on your machines to think for you. You've forgotten how to be unpredictable." As if to demonstrate his point, Horizon suddenly cut all power, drifting dead in space for 3 critical seconds before reactivating directly beneath the Dominion's main sensor array. The human ship fired all weapons simultaneously at this blind spot, causing the massive flagship to shudder. At the same moment, Earth's 3 ships attacked from different angles, targeting the same weakened section of the Dominion's shields. For the first time, the mighty Vex flagship took significant damage. "Their shield harmonics are failing," Wells called out excitedly. "One more coordinated strike." The bridge rocked as the Dominion managed to land a glancing hit on Horizon. Warning lights flashed across every console. "Hull breach on Deck 3, Anna reported. "Emergency teams responding." Reed gripped his chair as the ship stabilized. "All ships, focus fire on coordinates I'm sending now." The 4 human vessels, moving in completely unpredictable patterns, converged their fire on a single point on the Dominion's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a crack spreading across glass, the Vex flagship's hull split open, exposing internal systems to space. "They're losing power," Wells reported, unable to keep the amazement from his voice. "Their main reactor is shutting down to prevent catastrophic failure." On the main screen, Reed watched as the mighty Dominion, pride of the Vex fleet, went dark, emergency systems barely keeping it intact. Around the solar system, the remaining Vex ships suddenly began retreating, responding to some silent command. "They're leaving," Anna said, checking long-range sensors. "All Vex ships are breaking orbit, heading for the outer system." The bridge crew sat in stunned silence before breaking into cheers. Reed leaned back in his chair, feeling the weight of months of fighting finally lifting. "Captain," Anna called over the celebration. "Incoming transmission from the Dominion." "It's Krell." Reed nodded, and the Vex commander's face appeared on screen. For the first time, the alien looked uncertain. "How?" Krell asked simply. "Our technology is superior. Our systems more advanced. How did you defeat us?" Reed looked at his crew, humans who had faced impossible odds and won through creativity, courage, and unpredictability. "Because a warship isn't just technology," Reed answered. "It's the people who crew it. And humans don't follow predictable patterns. We adapt. We create. We surprise even ourselves sometimes." Krell was silent for a long moment. "The Vex will withdraw from this system," he finally said. "Your species has proven unique among those we have encountered." The transmission ended. The Vex fleet, once poised to conquer Earth, retreated to the edges of the solar system and beyond, leaving humanity battered but victorious. 3 months later, Reed stood with Wells and Admiral Grant on a viewing platform overlooking a massive construction bay in orbit around Earth. Below them, workers swarmed over the skeletons of a dozen ships, each based on Horizon's design, but incorporating new improvements. "The Neon Horizon class," Grant said proudly, "Earth's new defense fleet." Wells pointed to modifications on the nearest vessel. "We've improved the hybrid drive. These ships will be faster, more powerful." Reed nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. "They'll be back, or others like them. There's a whole galaxy out there. And now we're ready for it," Grant said firmly. "Thanks to you, Wells, and the crew of Horizon." Reed watched as Earth's new warships took shape below. Ships so advanced, they might once have seemed like something from a science fiction story. ships that represented not just human technology but human spirit. The Vex had brought superior technology to our solar system, but they had encountered something they didn't understand: the unpredictable, creative, stubborn determination of humanity. And in the end, that had made all the difference. Reed smiled as the first new ship's engines powered up for testing, its hull gleaming in the sunlight like a beacon of humanity's future among the stars.